Today, we're diving deep into one of the most tense and strategic regions in the world, the Baltic Sea. For decades, it's been a flashpoint between Russia and the West, but now, things are heating up in ways that could reshape European security. Denmark, a small but powerful NATO member, is stepping up in ways that directly challenge Moscow's influence over this crucial maritime corridor. What's happening in the Baltic Sea right now could signal the start of a new kind of confrontation, one that mixes military power, economic pressure, and geopolitical chess. The Baltic Sea may look calm on the surface, but beneath it lies a struggle for dominance that has been brewing for years. It's not just about geography, it's about energy routes, trade control, and military access. For Russia, the Baltic is a lifeline. It connects St. Petersburg to the world and provides critical naval access to the Atlantic. For NATO, it's a zone that must remain open and secure to prevent Moscow from expanding its influence. And standing right at the center of this is Denmark, whose control over the Danish Straits gives it immense power to influence who moves in and out of the Baltic. Recently, tensions have escalated as Denmark and its allies have started to tighten security and monitor Russian activities more closely. The Danish government, working alongside Sweden, Finland, and NATO partners, has made it clear that the Baltic Sea will not be left vulnerable to Russian manipulation. With new surveillance systems, naval patrols, and even legal measures over maritime borders, Copenhagen is quietly drawing red lines that Moscow cannot cross without consequences. This shift is part of a much larger picture. Ever since the Nord Stream pipelines were sabotaged in 2022, the Baltic Sea has become a zone of suspicion. No one has definitively proven who was behind the blasts, but the event changed everything. It exposed how vulnerable undersea infrastructure is, and how easily energy routes could become tools of war. Denmark, sitting right near those pipelines, took it as a warning. Since then, its defense posture has transformed dramatically, and it's no longer just a passive observer. It's a key actor. Russia, on the other hand, has been trying to assert its authority through both hard and soft power. Its Baltic fleet, stationed in Kaliningrad, remains one of its most potent regional forces. From missile systems to submarines, Moscow has been bolstering its presence in hopes of maintaining leverage. But this move is being countered by an increasingly coordinated NATO presence. With Finland and Sweden now joining the alliance, the Baltic Sea has effectively turned into a NATO-dominated body of water, leaving Russia in a corner. Denmark's challenge to Russia's control is not about starting a war, it's about balance. The Danes understand that the only way to prevent conflict is by making sure Moscow knows that the Baltic is not theirs to control. Through joint military exercises, strategic investments in defense technology, and diplomatic initiatives, Denmark is sending a clear message. The era of Russian intimidation in the Baltic is coming to an end. One of the most interesting developments is the rise of Denmark's role as a maritime guardian. Its navy may be small compared to superpowers, but it's highly advanced. Equipped with stealth frigates, state-of-the-art sensors, and NATO-level integration, Denmark is capable of tracking and intercepting almost any vessel that enters its zone. Combined with its geography, it has near-total control over the Danish Straits, essentially the gateway between the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. If Denmark wanted, it could slow or even halt Russian military access to the Atlantic, making it one of NATO's most strategically valuable members. This control has given Denmark a new kind of geopolitical leverage. For decades, it preferred to keep a low profile, focusing on diplomacy and humanitarian efforts. But after Russia's actions in Ukraine, everything changed. The invasion was seen as a warning to all of Europe, and Denmark realized that its security couldn't rely solely on distance or neutrality. Now it's taking bold steps to ensure that no hostile power can use the Baltic as a weapon against Europe. Moscow has noticed these moves and isn't happy. Russian state media has started accusing Denmark of provoking tensions and acting under Washington's orders. But beneath the propaganda lies real concern. If Denmark and NATO secure full operational dominance over the Baltic, Russia's naval strategy could be crippled. Its ships in Kaliningrad would effectively be trapped, unable to operate freely in case of a major confrontation. For a country that prides itself on its maritime heritage, that's an unbearable scenario. At the same time, Denmark isn't acting alone. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, are working closely with Copenhagen. Finland and Sweden, now under NATO's umbrella, are integrating their defense systems with Denmark's. This means shared intelligence, unified command structures, and real-time cooperation in detecting and responding to threats. The idea is simple. If Russia makes a move anywhere in the Baltic, all NATO members will know instantly and can respond collectively. This growing unity is reshaping the balance of power. For the first time in modern history, Russia is surrounded on almost every side of the Baltic by NATO countries. From the northern tip of Norway to the southern border of Poland, the alliance now controls nearly the entire coastline. The only Russian holdouts are St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. That makes Moscow's position extremely vulnerable, especially if conflict were ever to erupt. Denmark's assertiveness also extends into the realm of energy. With Europe trying to move away from Russian gas, the Baltic Sea is becoming the center of new energy routes and offshore wind projects. Denmark is leading the charge in building renewable energy islands and connecting power grids across the region. This isn't just about green energy. It's about cutting Russia's economic influence. By investing in clean alternatives, Denmark and its partners are ensuring that Moscow loses one of its biggest pressure tools, energy blackmail. What's remarkable about this shift is that Denmark, a country with a population smaller than Moscow's, has become a strategic heavyweight. It's punching far above its size, not through brute force, but through intelligent positioning. By controlling choke points, coordinating alliances, and focusing on technology, Denmark has made itself indispensable to NATO and to Europe's defense network. However, there are growing fears that this increased militarization of the Baltic could lead to accidental escalation. The sea is crowded with ships, submarines, and surveillance drones from multiple countries. A single misunderstanding or collision could trigger a dangerous chain reaction. This is why diplomatic communication channels between Moscow and NATO are still crucial, even in times of deep mistrust. Denmark, in particular, has called for more transparency in naval operations to avoid unnecessary confrontation. Despite these risks, Copenhagen shows no sign of backing down. In fact, the Danish government recently approved record increases in defense spending, focusing specifically on naval and cyber defense capabilities. It's also supporting NATO's new plans to deploy quick response forces in the Baltic region, ready to counter any Russian aggression within hours. These measures are designed not to provoke but to deter, to ensure that any hostile move by Moscow would come at an unbearable cost. From Moscow's perspective, this all looks like encirclement. Russian military analysts argue that NATO's buildup in the Baltic is a direct threat to Russia's sovereignty, but the truth is, it's Russia's own behavior that triggered this response. From the annexation of Crimea to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Moscow's actions have pushed even neutral countries into NATO's embrace. Denmark's challenge is simply a logical step in ensuring the safety of Europe's northern flank. As the situation evolves, the Baltic Sea is turning into a test ground for the future of European defense. It's where new technologies, strategies, and alliances are being forged. Every drone flight, every naval patrol, and every diplomatic statement carries weight. For Denmark, it's not just about national security, it's about defending a principle that small nations have the right to protect their waters and their sovereignty against aggression. What happens next in the Baltic Sea could define the next decade of European geopolitics. If Denmark and NATO succeed in keeping the region secure, it could serve as a model for how alliances can deter larger adversaries without direct confrontation. But if tensions continue to rise unchecked, it could become one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet. For now, the message from Copenhagen is clear. The Baltic Sea is not a playground for power projection. It's a shared space that must remain open, secure, and peaceful. Any attempt to dominate it will meet firm resistance. And while Denmark may not seek war, it's more prepared than ever to defend its territory and its allies. In the end, what we're witnessing is not just a regional dispute, but a broader transformation of Europe's security architecture. The Baltic Sea is no longer a quiet backwater. It's the front line of a new strategic era, and Denmark, once seen as a minor player, has become one of its central figures. So, as the world watches these waters, one question remains.